We ready? Okay. So, tonight...
I make a meeting, we start the meeting.
Yeah.
I would second that.
Yay! All in?
Yeah.
Okay. So, tonight I called this meeting because we had a few things to discuss, and we have to discuss them because they haven't been done right for quite some time. And I really want them to be done right, and I assume that you fellas want things to be done correctly. So the first thing that I wanted to do was to go over our September appeals hearings. And we had two. We had Cavallero first, and we had McGonigal second. So Cavallero, we found in favor of his variance.
Put a shed up.
To put a shed, but also for a driveway.
Right.
So what had happened was I just, on his original variance approval, which I wrote up the very next day, I had written it up, and I just said that we had approved his application. Not good enough. After speaking with DEP, where did that other one go? Oh, here it is. After speaking with DEP, I find that the language that we use can't just say we approve his application. It has to include each thing that we approve and any conditions that we agreed to during the appeals hearing. So I had to go back and rewrite it and just be a little bit more specific. And then in speaking with Mike Stoltz up at MMA, who's with the legal department, I find out that we should be writing these variance approvals or denials together so that nobody misses anything when they're writing them. And that our decisions should not be happening at the end of a public hearing. They should be happening in a meeting after the public hearing. So, the other thing is that he said when we write these variances, we need to, like I said, do them in the meeting, and then we all have to approve the language that's written on them. So this one has been done. It's been emailed to MMA. It's been emailed to DEP. It's been emailed to everybody, and
So it's all corrected now.
It's all corrected. Alex has seen it. He's fine with it. DEP is fine with it. Everybody is fine with it. So I just want to pass this around first. This is our final approval on his variance. I just want to pass. You saw it. I just want to pass this around and just make sure that everybody's fine with it the way it is, because we all need to agree on it, and we need to make a motion that is his final appeal variance. So we have that. While he's looking at that and we're doing it, so apparently what needs to happen is we need to have the site visit, we need to have the public hearing, and then we need to have a meeting after the public hearing, whether it's immediately afterwards or whether we've just exhausted from that hearing and we want to have it the next day or within a day or two, because we only have a short while to finish this.
Right.
So we can make that decision at the end of public hearing whether we want to sit and do it right away or whether we want to wait and do it in a day or two. But what we have to do is we all have to sit down and we have to agree upon the way that we're going to write that variance, and we're going to agree upon the conditions that we put with each decision, with each part of what was our deciding points. So can I get a motion to approve this one?
I'll make a motion that we approve the rewritten statement.
For Cavallero.
For
I
Cavallero.
second it.
Okay, all in? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so that one's done.
So going back to what you just said, if we have a public hearing, the people who are seeking the variance now just become part of the
The
public.
public.
Although we kind of know how that goes, that they're gonna give input.
Right.
Because I mean, it just seems like the best time to sort of have that conversation is right then, just so we don't have to have another meeting.
Right.
I guess is
Well, we can have the meeting right after the public hearing. We could all sit down. I mean, I can take notes on it, and it will be videotaped, so I can actually go home and write it. But we at least have to have the discussion in motion to create this and the points that we want to put as conditions.
Yeah.
We have to at least have that discussion.
Yeah, well, you mean you can't, what you're saying, you can't have that when the people are here?
It shouldn't be part of the public hearing because they don't
Then it
actually
becomes a
have.
secret meeting.
No, it's
No.
right on videotape and they can have a seat in the public area. It's not secret at all.
So whether
There's no
we
secret
You
have,
mean they don't have to leave the room?
no.
No,
Oh,
no,
I
not
thought you
at all.
meant they had
These
to
are
leave
all
the room.
public meetings.
I thought you meant that.
No, not at all.
So we can do this, you don't have to have another meeting, you just continue on.
But you end the public hearing
Mhm.
and you move into public meeting. So it's two separate things and I was unaware of that. So now we have to, that's the way we have to do it. We have to end the public hearing so that it's clear. They've finished with their input. They've said all that they have to say because truthfully, I've been counseled a couple of times on McGonigal from a few different people who said at the end of their public hearing, when we went to make our decision and discuss variance approval or denial, they should not have had any further input. It was at that time, it was our decision, and we shouldn't have allowed them to continue adding information after the fact. Their public hearing time was over. We had moved into public meeting to have that discussion.
Yeah.
So I've been counseled on a few times that as chairman I let that get away from me. And that it should have moved into public meeting.
Right.
So that's that. So I got this already in the book here, but here is the final variance on McGonigal, the final variance denial on McGonigal. So I
So
wanted
you have to change that too?
No,
Oh,
no, but we need to motion to
mhm.
approve it as written, and so that's what I'm going to pass it around. Let everybody see it.
I don't agree with it, so I don't have to vote on it twice.
We've already voted.
Yeah, we've already voted, and it was denied.
Yeah.
So we're not voting on that. We're only voting on the language of the written that we all agree
I
that
don't
I
agree
didn't
with the
leave
language.
anything out. I'm
I
sorry.
don't agree with the language.
Well, then vote
The
no.
language is against, which I don't agree for.
Then vote no. But we're not voting on their variance approval or denial. We voted on that. The document was created, and now we're just voting to
But the
accept the
document is
document.
wrong. So how can I vote on it,
No,
for it?
Go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah.
Please,
I want you to
because
help.
I'm so frustrated.
No. If the document said the vote was 3-2 against to deny, that is a correct document, correct?
Yes, it would be.
So that's what you're voting on.
Okay.
This is that the
But the
document is
document don't
correct.
say that.
It's not. Well, it was denied, which was the correct vote, and so that's what you're not voting to approve or deny. You're voting that document reflects what you guys voted on during meeting. You voted against, and I actually don't know whether you're supposed to put down the vote count.
Not on that. It just has to be in the minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's
Because this goes
I
to the
gotta
court.
figure
They
that's
don't.
what you're voting on. You're not voting on whether the decision is correct or not correct.
Okay.
You're just voting purely on the document.
So, can I have a motion to accept this document as a reflection of our vote on McGonigal?
Motion to accept.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Thank you. So, the next thing that I have on my agenda is to discuss approval of minutes. So after each meeting, I have to create minutes. And usually what I do is I go home, I watch the video, and I create the minutes because I can't write them all down.
Of course not.
So I created minutes for both McGonigal and for Cavallero. And they've been written up all along, and when I was asked, did we approve the minutes? I said, no, we had not. And they said, because it has already been voted on, we really don't have to go back and approve these minutes. This came from MMA. I just have to make you fellas aware that we have minutes. And from now on, when we have a site visit and I create the minutes, when we come to the meeting for the hearing, you'll get a copy of those minutes. And we will vote to approve them before we open public hearing. And then when we have public hearing, when we have our next meeting after that, I will provide those minutes and we'll vote to approve or to make changes to them. Okay? So that's that. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about is that we are in desperate need of some training. The discussions that are had during public hearing, some of them were quite concerning to me because we tend to go with whether people or not people are good people or bad people, and whether or not they own the property or they should be able to do whatever they want. And while I understand the feeling behind that, I also know that there are laws, and that laws are very strict things. And as the appeals board, we swore to uphold the laws and not to uphold friendships or how we personally feel. I mean, there have been some decisions, we've had 2 so far, and there have been some I've struggled with and some that seem quite clear, but the whole thing is a legal process, and it has to be able to hold up in court, not just in Lebanon, in court, with regards to the laws of this state and of this town.
That's not true.
It is very true.
It has to appeal, in Lebanon, okay, we approve one thing in Lebanon. And if people don't agree with it, they take it to court. And that court don't care what Lebanon says. They're gonna look at it and say, oh, well, you guys made a mistake. But that's their decision. That doesn't mean that we are legally
That's
wrong.
not true.
Okay.
Well, but I think when you're approaching it from the opposite direction. You're approaching it from the direction that we deny them, and they.
No, I'm approaching it from whatever decision we made, whether it was yes or no. If we said yes and somebody said, well, that's not right, they take it to court, say that shouldn't have been done. And then the court says, a court agrees with us or they agree with the other people. But that don't make us wrong. We are an appeals board.
I didn't say that we were wrong.
Appeals board is we gotta look at it the way we feel about it.
No.
Of course we do.
No.
Of course you do.
No.
What do you think an appeals board is?
You appeal based on the law.
Yeah.
So in talking with
Why do they even have an appeals board if we have to?
Yeah, why bother?
so here's
Because
the
code
way.
enforcement officer denies.
Correct.
All right.
Or
He
the
denied-
planning board,
or the-
which has not
whatever.
been done here. It sometimes is the planning board.
But the code enforcement officer denies it because of the law.
Correct.
How can we turn the law to
Because what's been
That's
missing
the
here
favor.
is that in order to be granted an appeal by the appeals board, people have to fit into 4
Absolutely.
hardships. They have to show why not just the regular everyday law by the code enforcement officer can be amended or changed or bent because of an undue hardship.
But the
Which
code
is those,
enforcement
excuse
officer,
me,
he
I'm
don't look
speaking.
into them.
Excuse me, I'm speaking.
Okay.
There are 4 questions on the application for appeals board. 4. And it says quite specifically, they have to meet all 4 of those hardships in order to be considered for variance approval. So if we don't consider those 4 questions and find that they meet 3 but they don't meet the 4th, we are supposed to deny. Yes. Roger,
Well,
it's the truth.
And Roland.
Roland.
I'm sorry,
I mean,
Roland.
that may be where our judgment comes in.
That's what I'm saying.
That they have they have to fulfill all 4 of those categories.
No, they don't.
Yes,
Well, no, they do. But that's where our judgment comes in to a degree. I mean, we're almost like a jury.
Absolutely. I
And-
agree with you on that.
And
And we make the decision whether you think they make them points or she thinks they make. If she thinks they make them points, and I don't think they do.
That's why we
That's
have
where
the
the thing is
5-member
right there.
board.
Which is
So in
exactly-
other words, they don't really have to meet all them points. They do if according. You know what I'm saying?
right.
I mean,
Well,
there's an appeal board. There are different things that come up that you have to consider. There's all kinds of things you have to consider there. You know, I mean,
well, I think our
Yeah.
case the other night, these nice folks,
The McGonagalls.
the McGonagalls,
they got screwed. They should have
well,
been allowed to.
whatever.
Okay.
I think there were 2 votes, and there were 2 votes that thought they met the hardship
They did.
rule.
I agree. I think they did.
But there were, and that was your interpretation of
Right.
the hardship
That's
rule.
exactly what
And
I'm
that's,
saying.
I mean, we're kind of a jury.
Mhm.
We get to sort of,
Right.
with our best judgment, decide whether they meet the law
Right.
or not. So it turned out that 2 of us voted against, for them to
Right.
get the variance, and 3 voted against.
Right.
We don't have to have,
No,
it's
I
not-
Yes,
agree.
it doesn't
And
have to be
And
unanimous.
that's exactly what this panel is supposed to do.
Exactly.
Correct.
That's what I'm
Exactly
saying.
right.
And,
Yes.
And what you're saying, what you have to abide by the rules, you do, but you don't. You have to make your own rules. There's considerations for this. I mean, people have different hardships. People have, that all abolishes the rules more or less. You have to consider these things.
Okay, so let's look at, to switch back, the case of Cavallero.
Mhm.
So DEP has been getting quite a few phone calls with regards to this specific case. People that, for whatever reason, don't like the fact that we gave him a variance.
Absolutely.
They then have the right to challenge us, either to ask us for a reconsideration or to go to court. So one of the things that DEP asked me was, where are our facts and findings? Why did we create this variance? And so I sent him our minutes to our meeting. No, he doesn't want the minutes to the meeting. He wants the facts and findings. How did we apply recommendation and law to this case to come up with an approval? Well, we had never discussed that. So, okay, he said, you can't go backwards, obviously. So from now on, this is one of the things that we have to do. We have to have this discussion, which is why it shouldn't be done during public hearing. We have to have this discussion,
Well, we did
With
discuss it,
regards to
realistically,
law.
we did.
and we have to create a document called the facts and findings. The facts and the findings of this case and how we applied the law to this case.
But don't you feel, truthfully now, think about this, don't you feel that, I don't care whichever case it is, forget his case, any case we decide yes or no, there's gonna be, you gotta have a 50-50 chance, you can't please everybody.
That's very
There's
true.
somebody's gonna be bad, whether you
Somebody's
say
gonna be
yes,
mad.
like we said yes on that one, or whether we said no on McDonald's, okay?
Right.
Somebody is gonna be disturbed.
You're absolutely right.
Okay? And they're gonna take it to court if they want to, if they have
want.
enough money.
Correct.
So there, basically, it don't make no difference how you vote, whether you go by the law or you don't go by the law.
Correct.
It's gonna be like that.
That's
You know,
right. This isn't a popularity contest.
That's right. That's
This
what I'm
is a
saying.
job. This is
Absolutely.
this is an important
And you're gonna do
job.
it to the best of your ability,
Correct.
however you think,
Correct.
okay?
So
Now, not saying like you say about people say, I don't care what people do on their own property, that's what you just mentioned a little while ago.
right.
If that's my thought, that's got nothing to do with you or the way I vote. If I wanna vote that way, I can vote that way.
That's correct. You can vote any way you want.
And it don't
That's
make
not-
no
I'm not
difference what you
speaking
got written
about your
down on the
vote.
paper or whatever.
I'm not speaking about your vote. What I'm speaking about is the fact that this board is supposed to, I'll say supposed to,
I know
for
you go by the rules.
Go by
Yeah,
the
go
law,
by the
not the
rules.
rules, the law. the law that's voted in by the people of this town and the law that's voted in by the people of this
Now,
state.
the people of this town, there's nobody in this town that ever voted on any of them laws you got
They
about
voted
appeal
in
board.
shoreline zoning, otherwise we wouldn't have it.
There's nobody here that voted on shoreline zoning. That will all taken care of by the state.
It
people
just
up
magically poofed
People
into
up in
Lebanon
Portland,
ordinance.
nobody in
Roger,
Lebanon voted on that.
Roland, you're being a little bit ridiculous. But
No, I'm
anyway,
not.
well,
you
are.
actually think that a person on Sioux Shore Road voted on shoreline zoning?
There are more people in this town than just the residents of Sioux Shores Road.
Well, that's the
I mean,
people
I
who
hate to tell you.
that's part of this town.
So I'm actually glad that that Roger came in, because Roger had a chance to speak with DEP, and I think Roger has now understood where I'm coming from. This is
but there's one thing I don't understand.
You asked me for this, so there's that.
Yeah, there's one thing I can't understand. If a person has a non-conforming law, and according to the law, everyone who comes in will get rejected.
Sometimes that's true, unless they have an undue hardship, which can be proven, and that's what we do, is we say whether or not they fit into those criteria, and then if they don't like our decision, then the next step is to go to court. But if they go to, and they can just go to court, they can sidestep us and just go to court if they want to. It's completely up to them. But it's a lot longer and it's a lot more costly to get an attorney. And frankly, if they have been to the appeals board, it just shows that they're willing to follow the steps of the process, and the judge will see that judgment. However, I will tell you with no uncertainty whatsoever that judges in this state have upheld shoreline zoning 100%. They don't back out on it. They don't say, well, you have 4 more kids or 10 more kids, or they don't. They go by, and they're very serious about it. And if you read through those letters, as I said, so is DEP. And DEP has given Lebanon basically another chance. They were very upset about some of the things that had been going on here in town. And they were upset that shoreline zoning was not being enforced. So with that kept in mind, I'm very, very wary of just saying, do what you want to do. They're quite upset about it. So, and there are some people that are going through issues right now with DEP because they're upset about the fact that the shoreline zoning has not been paid attention to. So, at any rate, that's my final word on it, and that's what I intend to do. And in the meanwhile, I reached out to the Board of Selectmen after I had a pretty serious back and forth discussion with Roger for a while the other day, and we've talked about some training. So there is MMA training, which is available 11/5.
What is MMA?
Maine Municipal Association. And they're having trainings 11/5 and 12/2, I think they are, but the closer one is 12/2 in Lewiston. And so we were back and forth, because we do have a training budget we can use. We were back and forth on it, and Chip graciously reached out to Attorney Costigan, who is the town's attorney, and she's agreed, although she has not gotten back to me with a date yet. I did email her, and I'm waiting for her reply. She's agreed to come for free and do a training session with regards to the laws and the appeals board's oath to follow those laws, and what our job with regards to the law actually is. So I know that Roger can't come on Thursdays, and so I told her Thursdays seems to be impossible. And I know that you can't come during the day, and I told her that as well.
I can't come till next June.
Till next June. So that's
When are you
interesting.
leaving?
But
Friday.
Friday.
Oh, you are really? Oh my gosh.
So
First frost.
so we won't have you then for Cadwell Otter's appeal.
No, I won't be there.
When are you leaving?
Is that package ready
Probably
yet?
not until December.
It is. It is. Right. Yeah, and
I'll try to pick it up.
yeah, I did email you. It was on that first email where we were having that discussion, so
Yeah.
you probably just overlooked it. But yeah, Cadwalader is ready.
She's gonna come here, the lawyer?
Yes, she is going to come here.
What kind of lawyer is she?
And it will be videotaped as well. She's the town's attorney.
Town's attorney.
Yeah, but
She is the town's attorney.
but is she
Familiar with the law.
familiar in real estate law and all this stuff? I mean, if
I'll turn that over to Chip to answer for her
No,
qualifications
I'll actually
because
answer that, and I was gonna add something if you don't mind.
Okay,
That
sure.
may help. Yeah, so no, she goes to court to represent the town
oh yeah,
as far as if we have land use issues, which is real estate. So she's involved with our enforcement actions.
Mhm.
If we have to enforce against somebody that's doing something against, a law or building without a building permit, and we want them to take it down or do whatever. So she handles all that stuff. They're with Bernstein Shore, largest firm. I think they're pretty much the largest firm in Portland. So they're well known. She actually doesn't do personnel issues. There's somebody else in Bernstein that handles that. So she's really more on the municipal law area is really what her area is anything to do with municipal law, with the exception of personnel stuff. And then just to get back to another way of thinking about how you make decisions and whether it matters. There's two sides, where there's two residents. If you think about it, there's two residents on either side of your issues whenever you guys get together. There's the resident who's asking, and there may be other residents that have an interest in how that goes. And then there's the other residents that may be against, or again, may have other issues. So you have, let's say there's environmentally conscious people that care about development close to the shoreline. So all those people care about shoreline zoning. A person who lives on the shore may not care as much, or a person who is from out of state who just has a camp here really just cares about because they want to have fun on their camp. So you guys when you guys make a decision, your decision is going to affect both sides of that. And I guess my whole point would be is that the decision that you make should be the one, or you should try to make that decision the one that the courts will uphold. Because otherwise, if you guys decide whatever way you want to do it, you could be making somebody spend their money in attorney fees for something that they shouldn't have had to do. If you make your decisions that the court should uphold, should agree with, then you want to go to court to fight it, fine, because we know we have a pretty good feeling the courts are going to uphold it. So it shouldn't be a matter of you guys make a wrong decision, and what I mean by wrong, one that the courts are probably going to reverse, because then you're forcing somebody to have to get attorneys to fight it in court, which costs them money. And it may cost the town money, because then we have to also go to defend our side, because we're defending the appeals board, so we're representing that other side. So that's there's two sides to everything, and it's not just one resident against the state. And so shoreline zoning, yes, I agree. A lot of the shoreline people down there probably didn't vote for shoreline zoning. And certainly the out-of-staters didn't. But there's probably a lot of other people that did vote because they want to protect their natural resources. And somebody that buys, but you asked the question, are they all non-conforming? No, if they have a fire where they can rebuild, they can demolish and rebuild. If it's so bad, they can do that.
Yeah. With one piece standard.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it depends on what was there existing. So there's stuff in there in shoreline zoning that allows them to do certain things.
Yeah.
But there's other things that they can't do because
like we're talking when you're talking about
but there's
like Indian Lake Shore, they're all lots 50 by 100, 50 by 100, 50 by 100. I mean,
well, I'll give you another perfect example.
It's almost impossible to meet any of the requirements.
Well, it's even impossible to meet the side setbacks and the front setbacks. It's our regular lot size stuff. Okay, but those setbacks are actually made for 2-acre lots out here.
That's what I was saying last time.
And so, but the town has been actually so against any kind of zoning So zoning is like this 4-letter word that, well, actually was zone, but that nobody likes. But actually zoning a lot of times is used to help. So what if you had zoning so you could then zone Indian Lake Shores and Sewell, that whole waterfront, so because the lots are smaller, so the side setbacks and the front setbacks are smaller. You don't do that for the 2-acre lot, but you can do it so you can have your own zone. It doesn't necessarily help shoreline zoning, but it might help some of those back lots that are small little back lots down there that were done during that development, so you can do that. They just did that with Higgins Beach and Scarborough. They just did brand new zoning where the current zoning laws pushed everybody back from the street. Well, they made everybody go up, which caused these weird architecture stuff, and so they changed it to keep it so.
You talk about Sewell Shore Road.
Yeah.
Most all the lots on Sewell Shore Road are 100 foot.
Right.
And 100 feet deep, but there is no depth. Most of them don't have a stake in the back because the road was there. They don't have a depth, but it's supposed to be 100 by 100.
Yeah.
Now, and also, there's a lot here that's supposed to be 100, but Mr. Sewell decided, well, geez, someday I may want to develop that land across the street. So I'm only making this lot 80 foot, and they've got a 20-foot right of way for the people across the street can come walk down through and go down to the water, see? So.
But it was there when they purchased it.
Who?
The people that own it.
Yeah, of course it was.
So it was there when they purchased it. It wasn't a surprise to them.
No, no, and so therefore, they only got their 80-foot lot right here. Mm-hmm. Might be 100 foot deep, but it's only 80 foot wide.
Right.
So there was no zoning. There was no shoreland zoning back then. Is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Right. This was all legal,
and that's why they allow lot size.
That's why. That's why they. When you come to the appeal board, they have them 4 questions. You got to answer that. I understand them 4 questions, but you got to go above and beyond it. You got to think in your head. Right. What about these people? I mean, this guy's owned this lot for 50 years. He owned it before there was a shoreland zoning. Mm-hmm. I mean, now we're going to take and grab him by the throat and say he can't do this because that shoreland zoning is there. But he owned it 40 years before the shoreland zoning came. He shouldn't even have to qualify with anything. So what Chip was saying
is that if he purchased it prior to shoreland zoning, shoreland zoning, there is a grandfather clause on the book.
But there ain't, according to you. There's rules.
No, that's I've never discussed grandfather clause.
You said there are laws.
Correct.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. You got to consider these things. These people did not
own it at that time.
They did.
No, they didn't.
McGonigal did.
No, they didn't.
They owned it 50 years ago.
Their parents owned it.
Oh, come on. Deborah, be realistic now. What if your parents owned a place and you lived there, well, would you consider you owning it too?
No. Not a recreation home, and no.
Yes. Of course you would.
No, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't.
Oh, of course you would.
Please, Roland, what you're saying is not even making sense. You don't own it, your parents own it. You have to live by their rules. You have to do what they tell you to do. It's not yours. And then you buy it and you have like this little celebration. This is ours now. It's family heritage, yes, but it's ours now. We own it. It's yours now. It wasn't yours when you were a teenager. It was your parents. Oh, it becomes yours when you own it.
It's a family.
I bought 1.25 acres on Acres Pond up in Arrow. Mm-hmm. I bought that in 1986.
Okay.
The only law I got to do is if I want to build anything on that, the only law I got to do is I have to have a state-approved sewage system. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Is maybe Acres Pond is not considered a great pond. Northeast Pond is.
Well, I guess
so.
Any water body.
So here's the thing: is that you may only have to go under.
It's a lot bigger than Northeast Pond. Acres Pond is.
So you need to figure out then, and this is outside of the meeting. I really shouldn't. I'll talk to you about it afterwards. But at any rate, there are laws, and they have
a zoning law now. So, they have the zoning show up there. But where I bought it before they put the zoning in.
So before the zoning, which is exactly what we're speaking about.
Which I already got, a 3-bedroom.
Exactly. So Lebanon, when we passed the zoning laws, before that time, which was 73, 74, if you owned it, if you have your deed, and it, which is why we ask for the deed when people are creating their appeals, part of their packet has to be their deed, because it shows us when they purchased the property, and then we know,
Yeah, those people,
can they be grandfathered or they can't.
the one that owned it, they made the mistake about, they should have had it like in joint tenants or common or something, but they went and had a new deed made 4
Right.
years ago. So that screwed them.
For McDonald. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's still family. Still family.
It's still family, yeah.
Still family.
But according to
Still
the
family.
law, it was a new
That's
deed.
where you gotta have
Right.
a little leniency. You gotta have a little compassion
Well,
for these people.
You
and
can
regardless
continue
of whether
to
the
vote that way,
law
but
or
I'll
whatever.
vote with the law every time.
I mean, even a
that's-
judge has
You know,
compassion.
that's your vote, and I'll vote with the law every time.
Okay.
Years
So-
and years ago there, when I first come on the board, I'm talking 15 years ago, I don't know who was that guy that was the chairman there? I don't know if he was an engineer or.
He was in Boston, he was an engineer in Boston.
Yeah,
I can't
and
think of
he
his
told us, he says, no matter what we say, if the people take it to court, 9 times out of 10, they're gonna win.
name. Yeah.
That's what he
So
told us.
that, yeah, and that's, it is the way of the past, and I'm sure as in your discussion with Mike Morris up at DEP, he told you that's not the way of it now. If the board's decision is valid and legal, 9 times out of 10, when it goes in front of a judge, the judge will uphold that as long as your documents are written correctly and as long as you've made a legal
So,
judgment by the law.
so I
you
can
know.
understand if somebody comes in with a non-conforming lot,
Mhm.
and the deed is dated before the shoreline zoning come in. And
Right.
if they can answer the 4 questions, then we can't deny them.
That's correct. If they come in prior to 73, 74 with a non-conforming lot, and it depends on what they're building, they still have to hold true to the town's building codes, which have different things. But we also have voted in a grandfathering clause, which and tell me if I'm wrong on this, Chip, because I'm new with the grandfathering clause. But it specifically says if they have a non-conforming lot that was prior to all of this, then we have to consider that. However, I will caution you that we still have to write a legal document
Yeah.
explaining to, and I'm sure Mike told you this, explaining to DEP why we saw fit to allow something that was so egregious to shoreline zoning that the people of this town voted. And that I can't tell you enough that DEP is really looking for us to make some valid decisions, and they're really looking for us to have enforcement of especially of the shoreline zoning. And they're right on top of it. They thought we were okay and that we were doing okay, and when they found out there were all these projects that were going on that weren't permitted correctly, they're more than a little upset. So all I'm gonna say is that I'm going to vote with the law every time. If somebody presents legitimate hardships, I will see in their favor. Each one of you is probably instructed to read your shoreline zoning and read your building codes. Start getting a feel for where you would allow and where you wouldn't. If you haven't read it, read it, and if you have read it, read it again, and just start to get a feel for where you would make an exception and where you wouldn't. And remember that we do have to make a presentation from now on, including starting with Cadwalader. If we allow or if we don't allow, we have to write this fact and finding page, because it instructs the judge as to the feelings of the board and why we voted the way we did and why we voted to approve or why we voted to deny. Because then the judge then looks at that, and the judge it helps the judge know how the local board voted and why, so that the judge isn't just seeing it fresh how he feels, he also knows how the local board voted.
I think you're too worried
So-
about the judge.
Well, I think you're too unworried about the judge.
No, I really, that's okay.
Judge
but
isn't pretty
I think
important.
you
I
can't-
think you're more worried about your
you-
friends than the judge,
No,
so
I don't
I'm
have
all
no
good.
friends.
I do things by the law.
I think you're too worried about not doing it by the law that you don't consider other factors. You gotta consider everything. You can't just go by the law. You gotta be compassionate, you gotta just go by your head, not necessarily by the law. I mean, you just can't do that all the time.
Well, I'm sorry that you won't be
If
here
you
for the
did
legal
that,
training by
if
the attorney,
everybody-
cause I think she'll tell you.
If everybody did that all the time, you couldn't even drive down the street, would you? Wouldn't get a ticket. Cause I know you don't go to speed limit.
You know I don't go
I know you don't go to speed
You
limit.
don't know me very well.
Okay.
Mary, someone you're laughing because everybody tells me I drive like a grandmother. Cause
When
I
you're
know the
heading
speed
out,
limit.
Friday?
So at any rate, I think maybe I would tell you to do the same thing Roger did. When Roger and I had a discussion, Roger called DEP. Roger had a discussion with DEP, and I think that the fellow's name is Mike Morse. I'll be glad to give you his phone number if you'd like to call him, or anybody else for that matter. I usually don't call him, I email him. But I think that, and maybe Roger, knowing you, can have a discussion with you about that discussion
You learn
you had
anything,
with.
Roger?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You change your mind on anything?
Well, he proved a point in a way, but a lot of the things he did say, I mean, he more or less outlined the law, but like you say, a lot of it, I just couldn't understand, a non-conforming lot, but then once he come out with the hardships, if they can prove the hardship, then you can vote that way. But it's complicated, believe me.
No, I agree with you. And I felt that these people proved the hardship, but there again,
I did too.
other people didn't feel it.
But
So what
I
is,
think
you know,
what scared the other vote is when the state said we should deny it. And I don't think that was right on the state's part.
So I'm speaking for myself, and I'll speak. I'm speaking on the record. I wasn't scared. I liked those people. I thought they were nice people. If it were up to me, if I didn't have 6,000 other residents in this town, this is our job. This is the part that they gave
I realize
us.
that, but
This is the law they gave us to look after.
Yeah,
okay?
I thought they met the hardship. The state says no, but I thought otherwise.
Yeah, and
In
so
my
that was
opinion,
your vote.
that's
in your
why I
opinion,
voted.
and that was your vote. So, and so that certainly I think is your right as well as it's your right.
If we would have voted wrong and we would have passed it, and the state didn't want it, they would have stopped it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, what they would have done. So let's say that we had voted to approve it. What would have happened next would have been the day after we approve it, I wrote the variance of denial, and it gets sent right away to DEP as required by law. So DEP gets it, and DEP looks it over, and then DEP can say, well, okay, and then they write a letter back to us, and they say, we're not happy with what you did, and here's why, and they'll give us reasons why, okay, and then they can ask for reconsideration. So then we have to meet again as a board. We have to discuss the reasons that DEP feels that we voted erroneously. And then we all have to say, do we still feel, with DEP outlining this, do we still feel that we did the legal thing by allowing this? So at that point, we may have told these people, we agree with your variance and give them an approval. Then once DEP gets it and they ask us for reconsideration, we may look at DEP's answers to us and we may say, geez, we were wrong. And then we're denying something that we already approved, which is a sketchy situation at best, which is why I really want us to make sure that the first time we vote, we're voting something that's legal. Because then what happens is that if DEP still doesn't agree with it, if we say, no, we're approving, because this is the way we feel. We like those people and we want them to have their bedrooms. So, okay, then DEP goes to court. And DEP uses actual case law and actual law in front of a judge, and then the judge can say, no, we don't agree with this, it's outside of the law. So then if these people that got the approval, if DEP then takes it to court and they wind up denying, if they've already started their project, they shouldn't have to pay. So guess who's on the line? The town. And now they take the town to court because they have to alter their plans or they have to destroy what they wanted to do
But
because
that
we
was a
should have
complicated
denied.
case.
It was very complicated.
Because one part of the state gave them a right to do it, and then another one says they can't do it.
Okay, so
That was complicated.
let's speak specifically on those two parts of the state because I've got that all figured out now and I might be able to shed some light on it. So what was happening in this office, in our code enforcement office, is he was sending everybody to the state to get a permit by rule. Well, just by the name of that alone, it sounds like they have permit by the state to do their building. That's not true. So what a permit by rule does is they come down and they look and they say, well, he's going to have to take out 2/3 of the trees on this lot to do this. We don't want that. We want this. And they can alter it if he wants to put stone in a stream. It's any altering of a natural resource. It has nothing, and I repeat, nothing 100 times whatsoever to do with shoreline zoning or with local building codes. It's just a permit that they're okay to either do the alterations of the natural resource as they're asking, or that they're not going to touch any of the natural resources. That's all that permit by rule is. But people here have been using that permit by rule to say, oh yeah, we got permit by rule. That's $75, and a guy comes by and goes like, yeah, you're not cutting down any trees or altering a waterway, you're good. That's all that is. It's not even looking at his building permits. It's not looking at his electrical. All it is coming down and saying, you're not destroying any natural resources, or if you are, here's what we're going to require for you to replace those natural resources that you're destroying. All that permit by rule is regarding natural resources. We don't even have to know whether they have that or if they don't have that. Most people do it after us. It's not even something that they need to be doing prior to coming to appeals board.
No.
It's really nothing.
But it's all
except for
part
saying,
of the state.
Yeah,
but shoreline zoning is something they have to fill out and either approved or denied before they come here, which has not been being done. When they, as a matter of fact...
See, here's another, like this guy on the peninsula, right?
Yes.
Okay. He's getting charged for 2 building lots. And by rights, he can't build on them.
That's right. He's working through an appeals process on that, an abatement process on that right now, because he did not combine them.
Huh?
Yeah, Cavallaro.
Yeah.
He did not combine them. The town, separate them. The town did for tax reasons. And that's all in the courts. That has nothing to do with us whatsoever.
No, but what I can't understand is if a town is charging somebody for a building lot and he can't build on it, that's not right either.
Then he asked for an abatement. That has nothing to do with us.
But I mean,
it's a completely different legal process.
I know, but I mean,
it has nothing to do with us. The abatements are decided by the Board of Assessors, who are also our Board of Selectmen, and they also have the right to appeal. But it's not to appeals board. It's to the county commissioners and then to a judge. So we don't even consider whether they're paying for a buildable lot or all that we're supposed to be considered is how his project fits on that lot, and if it doesn't fit within the law, we have to consider the hardships. Those two things are our job. How does that fit on his property?
We did that.
And whether or not, I know, but I was answering his question, which I'm allowed to do.
Nobody said you're not allowed to do it.
So how that fits on his property and whether or not it fits with the laws, the building laws of this town and the shoreline zoning of this town. That's our job, those couple of things. Yeah. And so if we, like I tell people, and I told the McGonigal several times, and I told Alex several times, if we deny it, we're not the end all be all. There is a further process.
right.
You know, but let's say we denied Alex. Let's just say we denied him, Cavallaro. And he went to a judge. The judge is going to look at our findings. He's gonna see why we found it that way. And then, guess what the judge looks at? Those same 4 hardship questions is what the judge uses to rule, and it's been upheld by courts in this state for many years.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so he's looking at those same 400. Now maybe, I was talking with Alex, and he said, "What if I had forgotten something? What if I forgot to tell you something that was important and you had denied it?" Well, you can't come back again and appeal again here, but you can go to the judge, and that's when you say to the judge, "Yeah, so I know I didn't meet those 4 criteria. However, there is extenuating circumstances, and here's what they are." And then the judge can reverse the decision. But if your decision in appeals board is legal, it's very, very seldom that a judge will reverse it. Very seldom. So.
I like,
Do you know how many went to court?
the state.
I don't know. Well, I mean, here, so out of the quote that was made to me from DEP is that the appeals board should be approving 2% of the cases and denying 98%. And in Lebanon, the appeals board has granted 2% and denied 2% and allowed for 98%.
We've never been to court.
So, well, of course not, because you're allowing everybody to do what they want.
Well, wait a minute. But those ain't the only people that can bring you to court. People who are against it could bring you to court.
Yeah, if they have the money.
Nobody has.
So, like Chip was saying, if they have the money to pay for a lawyer, because you can't just go and fight this stuff without a lawyer. You have to present.
But I mean,
how many people can really, Roland? Really? Sometimes the things you say, you should have a judge when you go to land use court against your neighbor. You should have a lawyer to represent your interests, to school you on the law, to school you on the reasons they shouldn't have been allowed. And if you go without a lawyer, you need to be pretty darn smart. You need to know case law. You need to have knowledge of all the building codes and shoreline zoning. So what Chip said is right, is that we're not only representing 15 families on Sewell Shores Road. We're representing 6,000 people. Don't put Mary in this. She's an observer.
Next time you get together with her, have her tell you about a guy who sued me.
I'm not sure what that means with the appeals.
You're talking about you got to have a lawyer, you got to have a this. Just ask her to tell you about it.
I'm just saying. We're not talking when you were a teenager.
And that was over land. No, this was just a few years ago. Over land. On Sewell Shore Road.
At any rate, I would advise you call up and speak to DEP because he has all the statistics. He can tell you the truth about things. And if you were here when the attorney came to do the educational seminar, I think you would learn quite a bit. So I hope that while you're away, that you'll watch that on video because it will be
I don't have
available.
The first idea how you even turn on that video. How do you do that? How do you do that?
Don't look at me.
You know how to get that video from here?
Do we have a time for this November 5th thing?
So the November 5th one is way up by Bangor. And that's not our date.
The one up there.
Yeah, I was going to go
December
up.
the 5th,
I was going to see, but I thought it was
I got a
just
lot of questions.
near Augusta. No, it's
in
way
Bangor,
up there, up near Bangor. So there is one on December, I think it's the 2nd in Lewiston.
December the 5th.
December the 5th. And it's in Lewiston, so it's closer, but I'm pretty sure you'll be gone, right?
Probably.
Yeah, so December the 5th in Lewiston, and if you're around, I mean, here's the thing is that you have to register, and then the town pays for you, and the town doesn't get that money back if you decide like, yeah, weather's bad, I'm going to Florida. You know, the town doesn't get that money back. So, while we're sitting here saying we're trying to protect the rights and money of people in this town, that would be pretty crazy. But I think myself personally, I'm going to wait and see what Attorney Costigan has to offer.
Now, what does she do?
I don't know. Like I said, this was only something that I presented to the Board of Selectmen, training, to see if we could get it approved, and then I was going to see who wanted to go. And in the meanwhile, DEP wrote me back an email and said, while MMA training is good, and I would suggest that everybody should take it, it's much different. It's state-based, while your attorney will focus on your local laws and your local ordinances and the state. MMA focuses basically on the state laws. So, actually, I had that conversation with Chip, and I had that conversation just in the other night in the selectmen's meeting. And Chip reached out to Attorney Costigan, and she has agreed to come free of charge, which I think is huge. You know, very nice of her, and provide that training. But of course, we have to work in her schedule. So I did send out an email to her and asked her to please advise me when she'd be
great.
available.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. So we didn't have to drive. I looked it up too, where Dedham was.
It's Uncle
Well,
Henry's country.
It sure is. Yeah, nobody knows how to turn on the computer either. They don't even have the internet probably. But yeah,
I'm
so
sure they do.
but yeah, but
They might say the same about Lebanon, actually.
true story. Except for that we're here. Well, yeah. At any rate, so the final thing that I had on my agenda is I've already mentioned once, and that is read your material. Read your shoreline zoning, local and state. Read your local building ordinances. Read your appeals board manual. Get familiar with it and get ready to be able to ask Attorney Costigan questions, because I'm sure she will be more than pleased to discuss the vote by your feelings.
Have they got a
issues.
code enforcement officer yet?
No.
Who, do we? No. We have an interim one.
Yeah, who?
We have an interim one.
Oh,
So jot down maybe a little list of some things that you don't understand. Like you said, your focus on not understanding is how we fit with non-conforming lots. So jot down your questions and have them ready for her.
I got an outline, I'll make an outline.
Yeah, when I met her before, I've talked to her only once ever before, and she was very, very thorough with my questions. So I'd assume that she'll be very thorough with anything you have to ask. So at this time, that's in my agenda. So I wanted to see if you guys have any. I mean, we're pretty open here in our discussion.
So does everybody have copies of these ordinances? Because I'm not sure I do.
Okay.
That's that big pamphlet you gave.
But that's
Yeah.
not the
No.
local ordinance.
That's
Shoreline zoning.
yeah.
That's
the state one.
Shoreline zoning and the local.
So have you gotten your Cadwell Otter packet? So one of the things I was going to
No,
tell
I
you
haven't
is
got
that's
that.
that's
packet for
ready.
The next one.
at any rate that's ready.
I ain't gonna be here.
Yeah, so you don't have to worry about it. But so that's ready for you to pick up. And while you're in here with Jenny, I would ask her for a copy of that. So what you should be looking at is your local building ordinance, the Lebanon building ordinance, and
Shoreline.
we also follow this MUBEC, and I'm gonna tell you the honest to God. I mean, that thing's like, I just leave it online, and if I need some clarification, I kind of go and look, and then when I still don't understand it because I don't understand the language, I'm not a builder. I used to go and ask Mike, or I'll throw a question to Chip or to MMA, or because it's kind of wordy. Go ahead.
Let me clarify a little bit. So the building ordinance, you're never gonna get anything that's gonna deal with the building ordinance, okay, or the building code, because you don't ask for a variance for two by four spacing.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, there's never, so what you're looking at is a lot size ordinance.
Yeah, lot size
The
ordinance.
lot size ordinance is what has setbacks, and those are side and front setbacks. So that's the primarily land one that we use. If we had a big zoning ordinance and you look at all the different residential versus urban, industrial, and they'd all have their own little setbacks, but we don't. So it's just the lot size ordinance is all that talks
Yeah, that's
about.
all that
We
we all
gonna
get
get
is lot
copies of that?
size because of
Yeah,
setbacks and
we
stuff
can give
like
you a
that.
copy, and that's just 25 feet or whatever the footage is, that's easy. It doesn't, that's all it says. Okay, and then you have the shoreline zoning ordinance,
Right.
okay, which is much more detailed,
Right.
but quite frankly, that work is the work of the code enforcement or the planning board to really know it, because we talked about if they're grandfathered. If you're grandfathered, then they shouldn't be denied. So whoever's reviewing their shoreline zoning permit, whether it be the CEO or the planning board, would see, okay, this person is grandfathered, so then as long as they're meeting all the other conditions of shoreline zoning, then they're approved. So that's where the grandfather, so they get disapproved or denied if one of the setbacks that's not covered by grandfathering is violated. What you guys end up doing on the appeals board is you have the appeals board manual that the state puts out, and it really is those four hardship criteria.
Right.
That's really the important issues, and what I would recommend to get a flavor for what those really mean is there's a section, there's several sections on MMA, and I can print them out that talk about all the court cases.
Don, actually, you've seen.
And they're actually,
I have.
Yeah.
well, and there's
Talk
actually
about-
it's a little dry reading, but there's actually some, you can read some of these court cases, and they summarize it, so it's not this huge court case. They summarize what happened, and it was the code enforcement officer approved this got approved, but yet other residents, abutters, appealed it. The court agreed with the appealers and made these people take down an petition. So I mean, and it's and so there's reasons. They tell the reason why they did that, and so those are what you're trying to get so when the first hardship talks about a fair and just value for the property, how do you define that? I mean, that you can leave up to opinion, but what happens is, if you look at how courts have decided that helps guide you on the right way to figure that out, because it's kind of nebulous on how you...
Well, this next case coming up, there are some questions that I have about it, and I'm confused, because I thought the original shoreland zoning allowed someone to put a small shed without a permit. And then we find out with Cavallari that any shed, even a temporary shed, is considered permanent. And this is going to be coming up in this next case. In addition to the fact that this fellow here seems to have a couple of sheds there already. And, if we deny him the new shed, can we tell him, well, he's got two sheds, if you destroy those, you can rebuild to the same square footage?
Well, from the way I look at it, he's got one
where do I
temporary
find the
shed.
answer to that
And
question?
if that meets the setbacks, then why can't he take a temporary shed out and put the new one there,
Because the temporary
I didn't know,
doesn't need it either.
years ago, they changed that, we've gone through this before, there
Right.
never used to be no setbacks on.
There is something about an 80 square foot shed, which I remember seeing, and I'm not positive if it's in shoreland or not, but I remember seeing specifically 80 square feet. I can figure that out, it's 8 by 10.
8 by 10, yeah.
Right.
And so, but I don't exactly know the particulars, but I do remember some, and it might have been in shoreland, specifically stating, 80 square feet or smaller. Because again, to keep your oars, to keep your life vest, that kind of thing, I think is what they were leaning
So when I
towards.
asked about that, because it's been brought up to me before, and I asked about this a couple of years ago, so it's not anything new. And what I was told was that it was in the town's original, but that it had been amended. So I haven't found it yet, and I've been
I know, it used to be
reading
10,
like a
I was
crazy
told it was
woman.
10 by 10.
but I haven't found it yet. But from what I
see
understand,
this
it
new
was in
appeal coming
the
on.
original.
You want that son of a gun right on the line.
Well, but
Yeah.
the thing is, if you drive down those roads, I rode down there the other day for the McGonigal thing, and every little shed is right on the line.
The line.
Because they didn't.
right on the
You
line.
could put them any place you want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no setback at all.
There wasn't any. I got another story to tell you. 1976, I bought this lot down here on South Shore Road. Had a building on it and everything. And a couple of years later, I get the tax bill. The taxes went way up. So I come down to town hall to have a meeting here. And I presented them any place in Lebanon, Maine, any place, 2 acres or less was valued at $20,000. That's what it was valued at. Your land value was any place. And they said, that's right. And I said, well, okay. I said, I got 100 by 100 lot. and you're valuing that at $35,000. How can
So
you do
it's not
that?
the 100 by 100 lot. Well, because it's not right.
Be quiet.
No, I don't have to be quiet.
Let me finish my story before
Acre
you.
or less.
So, go
Let
ahead,
me
Roland.
finish what I say.
Go ahead, Roland.
And it's called, and they called my 100 by 100 lot a quarter of an acre. And it was valued at like something like $35,000. And I says, how can you do that? And you want to get, this is the truthful answer I got from a selectman. And his name at that time was, he owned the campground out here. What's the guy who owns the
Potter.
campground? Yeah.
Tom
He
Potter.
said, they're not making any more of that land. Shorefront, waterfront. That's why they could value that whatever they want.
Sure.
Now, that's not fair. But if I owned a lot across the street, right across the street from my place, I could have 2 acres of this, only be worth $20,000.
Well, that's typical. If you've got a waterfront, or if you've got a view, or I mean, it happens all over.
See, now,
And
you think that's abiding by the law?
well, I think that the tax
It is, 'cause
assessor,
they can't just
Chip
change-
shouldn't be listening to what I'm saying.
Well,
the tax assessor probably gets away with whatever they can get away with.
Well, and that's not, see, so that's not, I mean, not that this is a discussion really for appeals board.
That's right.
But
It
that's
doesn't
not
have anything to
really
do with
true.
this.
There are people that watch over that stuff, and they frequently get reports back that they're assessing at 92%, they're assessing at 120%, and they have guidelines. They have to stay within a certain percentage of the value of that property. They can't just like assess at 500%. I mean, they could, but I don't think they'd get away with it. I think that, you know, if people came for an abatement and they denied it, they'd go to the county, and the county would say, "Oh, that property's not worth that," and they'd be abating everybody, and then all the taxes they collected would be abated. I mean, it's just I hear them talking about the reports all the time. We're assessing at 97%. We're assessing at 100%. You know, and you know, the selectmen kind of have a lot of say in the town, but they don't have all the say. There's still other people over them, you know. But at any rate, I think that's probably a discussion for
Yes.
another
I'm
day.
getting my property appraised in a couple of weeks. I'm gonna get it all appraised.
By an independent appraiser, like a
Yeah.
real estate appraiser. Yeah, and so it's good to know how much your stuff is worth.
I'm
You
gonna
know.
get it appraised, so when if I decide to sell it, I know what I'm gonna get for it.
Yeah, and that's a real estate appraisal. That's
No,
not
no,
an
this
assessor's
is
appraisal. It's a different story.
A regular appraiser.
Yeah, it's a real estate appraiser. It's not an assessment appraisal, which is I don't know the whole ins and outs of it.
Yeah.
I'm just new at it, so but they're different. You know, what your assessor might appraise your property at, what a real estate person appraises it at, because that's
A
your
real
sale
estate
value.
guy, he's gonna
you know?
appraise it for what he wants or
Right,
what he thinks he can
sell
get
it.
for it.
Right.
But this guy here is an appraiser that he does it on his own, not on his own, but he does it for towns and he does it for banks and stuff like this.
Right.
So
I make a motion, we close the meeting.
Amen.
I can tell Chip wants to go
Good.
home.
Chip's going like that. I want to shut off the video.